Welcome to Eurovision Kiki. We're three Americans who have fallen in love with Eurovision. I'm Doug.
I'm Steven.
I'm Katie, and here on Eurovision Kiki, we're bringing you the best information about the Eurovision Song Contest.
We'll bring you the music, history, traditions,
and all the tea currently surrounding the world of Eurovision.
Thank you for joining us for another Eurovision Kiki. This week, Katie is still out and about and traveling the world. So instead, we brought in another Katie.
Yeah. Welcome to the Eurovision Kiki podcast. Other Katie. Hey, girl.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
So, Katie is still out gallivanting and on her honeymoon. Last we checked, she is in Phuket. So, hey, girl, I hope you and Casey are having a good time. But for all we care, y'all can go Phuket yourselves.
I see what you did there.
Boop. And I oop. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
So, Steven, tell us how you first met Katie and how this all led to her joining us today.
I don't even know where to start, so I'm going to actually
start at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm going to have Katie kind of help me share this story. So, Katie is actually part of the Eurovision Kiki as well because she came with us to Sweden and experienced all of the chaos and glory that was Eurovision 2024. But prior to that, Katie and I have been friends, and we can debate how long we've been friends, because I would like to think that Katie and I have been friends for at least 21 years. But according to Katie, we've not been friends for 21 years. We've only been friends for 20 years. So
It takes time to warm up to you, Steven. I get
it. That's not true at all. The first time that I met Katie, I was a freshman in college, and I happened to meet her in a circle of other people that I was getting introduced to through sort of, we're going to say, a mutual colleague, because we don't talk to this.
We don't talk to that person.
A mutual colleague. Let's keep it vague. That's fine. Totally vague.
We're going to keep it very vague as well. And this person happened to be like, Katie, this is Steven. Steven, this is Katie. And me just being me, I said, hi, Katie. Nice to meet you. I'm Steven. I just got a tattoo in a very inappropriate area of my body last night. Do you want to check it out? And I proceeded to pull down my pants in the middle of the quad and show her where the tattoo was.
As one does.
As one does. I don't know, Kate, how did you receive that? First and
I think she received it by waiting a year to be your friend.
I did. I think the way that we tell the story these days is I was like, and I'm not going to be friends with that person.
Cut to 20 years later.
20 years later, we're friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if the funny part out of all of that is, if you sort of examine everybody that was part of that circle and who's still part of that circle, it's legit just me and Katie.
We are the remaining two from the circle, the
Yeah.
college circle of friends, which I am grateful for. I would not
the
have
least likely duo.
But I am grateful for it now in so many ways. But yes, that story is also, I'd say, an indicator of our friendship and how it's grown over the years, because our friendship has been marked by a lot of us doing things
that are very questionable.
And quirky.
I feel like Steven does a lot of things that are questionable.
I mean, but to be fair, Doug, that's how our friendship also stems.
Also very true. Also true. So we have, I feel like it takes a special person to be able to travel with them, right?
True.
You don't just travel with anybody.
No.
And Katie and I have tested that a handful of times, because Sweden was not the first time that we have not only traveled together, we've done local trips together, and this was not the first time that we've traveled internationally together too. And I think friendships take a certain level to travel internationally together with. And if you can do that internationally, that's a solid friendship.
Well,
Sure.
Katie and I met via Steven, as everyone does. The world revolves around Steven.
And actually, one of the first times that you two met was during what we call Gays Giving.
yes.
Back in,
What's that?
God, I'm gonna say it was.
Oh my
about
God, that was 1 million years ago.
That was, yeah,
a million years ago.
2000 and
2000.
yes.
So, and who would have thought that here we are a couple years later?
Well,
Just 2021 ish later.
And even when we were in Sweden, Katie and I had this conversation of like, the only time we get to hang out, because we don't live in the same state currently, the only time we get to hang out is traveling. I'm like, am I traveling? Yeah, of course I'm going to go see Katie.
Yeah.
It is sad because I miss you, Doug, and you are also one of the good people to travel with. So
I agree.
And that is where this trip was so much fun.
Yes.
To go with the group and just having people that have a similar idea of what travel should look like. Because I love many of my friends, but there are some where I'm like, I'm not getting up at 6 a.m. to go for a hike. That's just not how I travel.
That is not how I travel.
No, absolutely not.
Yes.
So
I do have a different friend in my life that I've had to learn how to adjust my expectations and travel with, because we will walk so many miles every day, and there is no break. There's no break. So, there is no rest on those trips. No. This trip, though, we did a great job.
Vacations, trips, two very different things, I suppose.
They are. Absolutely. They are. And for those who are listening and may not necessarily understand what the difference between a vacation and a trip is, let's dissect that before we sort of break down what today's episode is about, and that of the trip to Sweden and Eurovision 2024. A vacation. Go ahead, Doug.
I was just going to say, in our household, Ryan is very much about the distinction, because a vacation needs to be relaxing. He wants a drink on the beach. Vacation is a break, a relaxing opportunity. For him, it's a warm place, so it needs to just be chill.
Yes, 100%. Roger did not know the distinction until I had to help educate him, and this was it took a while until we were well established in our relationship, and he finally understood what trip versus vacation was. And it's very much that a vacation is a destination that you go to where the itinerary consists of nothing. You are there, and typically it is somewhere, at least in our household, it is somewhere that is sandy, ocean, beach, swimsuits, tan, cabana, beverage, nothing, sleep, wake up, repeat. Trip, Eurovision, running around, doing all of the things, catching trains, maybe missing a train, waiting for the next train, waiting until the next train, yelling at other people, using a safe word.
If you haven't yelled at people, have you even been on a trip before?
It's true.
I do want to clarify. You can
a car because you have no other option.
Right. You can have a vacation that is not sandy beach. But I do think a vacation is a little less scripted.
Correct.
Yes.
Where, when we went to Copenhagen and Malmö, we had a full-on itinerary, right? Like, we said, these are the activities that we are doing, and these are the days we're doing. We didn't necessarily put a time to them, because I wasn't going to be regimented like that. But at least in this trip, we had things, and we were going places.
And we did the things, and we went to places. So.
But also, we as a group, well, I would say 85% of the group planned the trip and built an itinerary around it so that we all knew where everybody had to be at what time and at what day and the exact things at specific times. And the other 15%, we can assume we know who those 15% were. They just
What
So,
I think was
yeah,
good about
take
this,
a drink.
though, have you talked about your pre-trip meeting and your PowerPoint presentation at
we
all?
have nope, we haven't.
No children left behind,
No
among
child
other
left
things.
behind. No, we
No
haven't.
hard drugs
Nope.
being a hard
Well, and-
rule for the group.
No, we haven't.
So I think that let's just dive into so this episode is really our trip and what it takes to go. And by no means are we telling you this is how you need to plan your trip to Eurovision, but hopefully there's a takeaway or two from this that helps people if they're deciding to go and what that planning looks like and when that planning needs to take place.
Yes.
So we decided to head to Eurovision. Stephen, you're our storyteller here. So how did that all come to be?
Yeah, so it was 2023, and as we all know, Loreen took the crown, and we knew that Sweden was going to happen, so we at least had a country destination. However, we did not necessarily know where the city was going to be, but we at least had some key points as far as planning went. You know, we could begin as a group to plot out potential cities that were in the running for hosting Eurovision 2024. So the project manager in me, as an aside, I work full-time as a project manager, so I went into a little bit of planning mode. I asked folks that were interested in going on this trip to seek out possible hotel venues for host cities that had expressed interest in going and placing holds on hotels that would be within approximate vicinities of concert venues and things like that. Knowing that Malmö was in the equation, my husband was very smart in thinking, okay, Malmö is close, but Copenhagen is also close as well. So we may also want to explore Denmark because that's legit a 45-minute train ride. Between areas. So if we want to be cost friendly and save money, we might also want to think about bouncing from country to country. So let's look at booking a couple of spots in Copenhagen as well as far as hotels are concerned. Talk to the group of folks that were interested in going, and they were also in agreement of that. Cut to September, October, when host city was announced, and it turns out it was Malmö. And the hotel prices in Malmö were substantially more expensive than they were in Copenhagen when you also factored in what the train costs were. And we as a group discussed what's the more viable option, and we all made a decision that staying in Copenhagen would be the more fiscally responsible decision to make. So by the time that hit, that was probably, it was about, and I'm going to say this, at the time of this recording, it was about September that we made this decision. So we locked in our decision to confirm hotel reservations in Copenhagen, Denmark, canceled all of our other hotel reservations, and started there. From that point, we did not have concert tickets because they were not available.
You just brought me back to waking up. What time did we have to wake up in the morning to get those tickets?
Put a pin in that, Katie. So we at least knew that we had hotels locked in by about this time. And we were still chatting with a handful of folks. Now, I will say, we've got other Katie on the chat in today's episode. Katie, who's normally part of the Eurovision Kiki, was at that point part of the trip. as was her husband Casey. We had begun talking with other friends who wanted to partake in the trip to Eurovision Song Contest, and we're really just kind of like putting together who's the group of folks that are going to go. Remind me, Doug, as well, who did we have for sure locked in at this time? I think I know for sure we had you, me,
Other Katie.
other Katie, who's here with us.
Katie
And
2.0, like, no.
yeah, our spouses.
Yeah, I feel like it sort of grew over time. We definitely had an initial, like, this is happening. If you'd like to join us,
Yeah,
this is the plan. And I think that's really what helped the process move forward, is that you had the initial, like, couples who would say, I want this to move forward. And if you want to join me, like, I'm all about it.
yeah.
But we need to lock in some plans soon.
And I will say this, kudos to Roger, my husband, who we talk about on here incessantly, who maybe one day will show up on an episode. Maybe we'll do an episode about the husbands. I don't know. Roger booked maybe like 6 rooms, which, that holds about 12 people, give or take,
right,
at the time. So you're at least thinking, okay, 12 people are going on this trip. So you can picture that. Let's put that out there for our listeners to maybe think about. And so we were thinking that this is going to be a group of about 12 people that are going. I know, shout out to Michael, who we were kind of saying, Michael, do you want to go on the trip? And Michael said yes.
Yes, which we love you, Michael, but nobody believed you'd actually show up.
True.
However, thank you for your Marriott discount.
Also that.
It made all the difference.
Hashtag Marriott.
So.
If that ever does it.
Shout out to Marriott. And
Shout out to Marriott.
But I think a lot of this comes back to the size of Malmö, the city where they were hosting, and our need to be outside of that city. And I think that's relatable to the upcoming contest in Switzerland, because Basel is a small town, relatively speaking. And so if you're looking, I mean, prices are already, $1,000 a night.
Yep. And I don't know, like, Roger has already, I will say this, we've already gone into project planning mode for 2025, and Roger has already looked into hotels for 2025, and we are once again finding ourselves in a situation where we will be commuting about 45 minutes to an hour, and we are going to be in a city that is not Basel. We're going to be commuting about 45 minutes to an hour every day that we want to go to Basel to be part of the Eurovision Song Contest experience, which I've committed to. And so we know that going in, that it will, once again, this is not a vacation. This
is a trip. And I think
Katie has also expressed to me that other Katie, who is here with us, has also expressed to me she's probably tapping out for 2025, but will hopefully consider 2026, because I don't know, why are you tapping out for 2025?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of two things for me. One, on the list of countries that I have yet to have the opportunity to visit, and the financial obligation that comes with a trip like this, because it's not a cheap, at least coming from the US, it's just not cheap, right? There's no way. I mean, I think we have done a great job of being financially responsible in the past, and it's not an inexpensive experience. For me, I think it's just a combination of those two things, and then some personal decisions. But I would say that, those two things aside, it is an experience that I'm grateful that I had, and it is an experience that I hope I get to have again in the future.
That's fair. Totally fair.
And I think for anyone listening, whether you're listening to this in 2024 or future or whatever, our biggest recommendation is plan early and often, right? Like there are people who are diehards, right? Like, we thought we were doing it well in advance by booking multiple cities once the country was announced. No. There are people who they look at the odds betting and book hotels in cities for whoever's like in the top 5 of the odds.
Yeah.
Like it's wild.
It is a bit of an art and a science, I would say, because I think the best thing we ever did was book the blocker rooms, and there was a risky moment there, right, where we were like, well, we can't adjust the block of rooms.
No.
Because if we adjust them, then we have to pay the higher rate, which was 3 times what we had booked it for, I think.
Yeah.
So getting commitments from the people who are coming early,
I definitely think that
is a big deal.
We took a lot of risks this last go around, but I think somehow we lucked out and it just worked in our
so well.
favor.
Yeah.
This go around. Who's to say as we go into 2025 this year? But I know, and Doug, you and I have talked a lot about this, not through recordings, and I'm going to use project management terms here. Like, we've definitely talked about this offline.
Yes.
There's still a lot of unknowns that we have yet to unravel, and normal Katie, I mean, I have a hard time saying that because, like,
Katie is not normal, but the other normal one.
Katie, but like, you're considered on the podcast, you're considered other Katie, and like,
Katie of Steven's life.
you are OG Katie to me, but like, I don't want to put words in Katie's mouth when she's not here while she's on her honeymoon, but Katie has like shared with Doug and I the probability of her and Casey going to Eurovision in 2025 is not looking good just because of the fact that they've been honeymooning. And I know that there's a lot of things going on with you, Doug, and Ryan.
It's just, financially is the biggest concern. Like, if I had all the money in the world, I'm there. Like,
we'd all be there. I think
it's no question I'd be there.
and similarly, like when we talked to Sean last week, I think a lot of people are going to be making a lot of sacrifices to make Switzerland happen. That it's going to be rough to make Switzerland 2025 happen. My financial planner, Heather, is probably going to like yell at me incessantly. Shout out, Heather. And it's good. 2025 is going to be rough. I hope that, with that being said, maybe we'll see an underdog in 2026 take a win home, and we're going to find ourselves having a really great time in 2026, like just fucking rocking it out.
I do think that's like a big component, right? Because like having the winner be like one of the most expensive countries in Europe. Like I'll be interested to see if there's like any impact to like attendance and other things. I know that like it's primarily like viewership.
Dion.
I mean, Celine Dion will make an appearance, I'm hoping deeply. But it is an interesting thing to think about because like had, let's say, Croatia won, we might all be feeling a little different about this trip.
Yeah.
And I think you are spot on. I think a lot of people are feeling that and it's all over. Everyone's talking about it online and just how can I afford to go there? Even if I live in Europe, just to stay nearby is going to be expensive. I mean, it's definitely a whole thing.
Yeah.
So as we kind of dive into this for our listeners who may be planning a Eurovision in their future, let's talk a little bit about the ticket process. Because Katie, you've already mentioned it, getting up early, because guess what? It's not about us Americans. It's all based in Europe. So #time zones.
Yeah.
#time zones, and then I absolutely underclubbed how popular this was going to be. I mean, like this for an American like equivalent, this is like trying to sign up for a Taylor Swift concert, right? Like we wound up in a queue that I was not
thousands of people deep.
So
yeah.
So, but like just the overall experience was, it was 10 a.m. in Swedish time zone. So that was, I think for you guys, that was what, 2 a.m. For
It
me in
was,
Seattle, that was
which was
1
like,
a.m.,
it was
something
like,
like that.
it was like, I think it was like 1 a.m. your time, which was actually 2 a.m. our time.
Yes.
And so Katie was on her laptop. Roger and I were on separate laptops. You and Ryan were on separate laptops. I think Michael and his boyfriend Nick, shout out to Nick, were on their own separate devices, and we were all in separate queues, just trying to make tickets happen.
Right.
Doug, do you want to share what happened on your side?
Oh, are you talking about me falling asleep? Rude.
Are you talking about Ryan falling asleep? Because Ryan
well,
was
so
the furthest,
so Ryan
closest to us.
Yeah. So the way it was, I mean, it was all done through Ticketmaster this past year, and so it was a random queue. So when it opened up, everyone who wanted to get in was just randomly assigned a number. Turns out Ryan had the best number. Now I will say that I was in charge of Ryan's laptop at that point because he had to be up early for work. So
Ryan,
he was the earliest in line.
Don't
but he had the
sword for her. Don't fall on the sword for her.
He had the best spot in line, and then I proceeded to fall asleep and wake up and miss it. So that was fun.
I want her to feel attacked.
Well, I think that's the big
yes.
thing, because we definitely tried to do some math and figure out, like, based on how the tickets were moving.
We were definitely trying.
How we were moving in our line, how long we were going to have to wait. And I think that hurt some of us, myself included.
We were all part of the text chain. We were like, should we all go back to sleep and figure out what we should be doing in order to make sense?
I mean, it was hours. I think at the end it was like 5-6 hours.
So many hours.
And Roger and I did actually go back to sleep, and when we woke up, we were still in the queue.
Right.
And then it sped up, right? And that was, I think, the big thing for people who are listening now. Like, it started really slow, and so we did our math based on like first hour numbers. Don't do that. Is the way I would, because like somehow, like, I think there's less tickets, there's less hemming and hawing about where you're going to grab tickets from or what you can grab tickets from.
Yep.
And so the queue moved a lot faster later on down the road. And so, as just an aside, it's something to consider.
Well, and we went in with a game plan because for those who may not know, there are 9 shows throughout the week that you can get tickets for. There is what used to be known as the jury show, which is now moving forward, just called the evening preview. So the day before all of the live shows is an evening preview. The day of the live shows is they're calling it the afternoon preview. It used to be known as the family show, but it is just the afternoon preview day of the live shows. And then you have the live shows themselves. And so theoretically, if you were just like winning at life, you could get 9 shows of Eurovision. Now, when you go in there and you get access from Ticketmaster, once you're in, you're in. But you got to decide, what am I trying to go for first? So we had talked about trying to get tickets for the live shows, and then, okay, if we can't get live shows, we want to do the evening preview shows. And they also had some restrictions around number of tickets for all the live shows. You could only get up to 4, but for the preview shows, you could get 10 tickets. So logistically, you have to be prepared.
You do. I also think the big thing there too was that we had all aligned and prioritized to just do best available and not like have some kind of giant debate while we were trying to get tickets about where we miss it.
I mean, the whole thing was chaos. Let's also
it was beautiful chaos.
It was beautiful chaos, because when it was all said and done, I mean, I'm trying to remember how it all.
You and Roger were the ones to get all the tickets.
No,
weren't you?
Doug and Ryan got tickets too.
Did you?
You guys got tickets.
We ended up getting. We got tickets for the.
Got tickets for the grand final at the
grand final watch show. Yes.
But you also got tickets for semifinal 1, I feel like. No, you didn't.
It was you and Roger.
Roger got tickets for semifinal 1. I got us tickets for semifinal 2. and then you got the tickets for the grand final watch party. So yeah, Roger was the one that scored the tickets for semifinal 1 rehearsal night, which is what used to be jury show. That's not jury show, which we've now debunked. I got us the tickets to semifinal 2 rehearsal night, formerly known as jury night. That night, can we talk about that night?
Of
Before we talk
course.
about that night, though, Doug knew early on that we were gonna not get like
Doug
final
yeah,
tickets.
we were scrounging for grand final tickets, and it did not pan out. Because
I mean, if you're traveling alone or there's 2 of you, I think it could have been done.
it could have.
But when you're traveling with a group and you don't want to, leave people out, it's kind of like, well, there was one point where I was like, Steven, there's 2 tickets available. We could literally ditch everybody. And we did consider it. Let's be real.
We totally did. And some people were like, yeah, no, go for it. And then there were others, Michael, that were like, no, we have to have everybody part of the group. And we were like,
I think I just would have felt bad that like Roger, Ryan wouldn't have been a part of it. Like I don't think it would have been as fun. Like, could I have had access to it? Maybe. But also the experience with the people I'm with is what's making that experience that much better.
100% true. I will agree with you on that.
It was in the end very nice to like be together as a group and be able to experience the songs together and like sing along to the songs with one another and watch emotions happen.
Well, and shout out to Axel for getting us all together for semifinal 2, because the tickets initially we were spread out.
Let's talk about semifinal 2 night. So, as many of us know, semifinal 2 was an experience to be had. And we've talked about this at length in previous
Maybe
episodes.
some tension in the air. I don't know.
Lots of tension in the air and lots of empty seats in the stadium. And, well, more so for like rehearsal night. A person that happened to be working that evening at the stadium came up to Axel and said, "Hello, gentlemen. You look lonely."
In my head, it wasn't quite that, sad, but
she was like, "Hey,
continue.
a better seat."
Yeah, no, but she was like, "Hey, do you want a better seat? I happen to have a ticket in the lower section, closer to the front row, if you would like to have this ticket." And Axel was like, "Yeah, I would love to, but I'm also here with 8 other people. No, 9 other people.
9 other people. With we were total 10, weren't we?
There was Axel. There was 10 of us.
10 of us total.
Yeah, with Axel, there was 10 of us total. And he's like, "I would love to, but there's 10 of us total. So I would feel like a jerk if I took this one ticket." And this lady was like, "Where are these 9 other people?" And he just sort of was, "They're all scattered amongst this section here." And he just pointed all of us out. And so she grabbed all of us. And then, well, actually, no, she said,
she asked how many tickets you needed. And then she's like, starts counting them. And all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, I've got 10 tickets. Yeah. Well, here you go."
And they were all in the same row of the same section. And the next thing we know, we got upgraded to like, it was the first section.
It was the first section, and it was dead center to the stage.
Dead center to the stage.
It was so great.
So cool. As awkward as semifinal 2 was, and like I think I've said this a couple of times. I mean, semifinal 2 night was still a good night. I mean, still justice.
I mean, it was a great night.
It was a good night. Justice for Czechia and justice for you still.
Well, and we were able to see every artist, right? So if we had just done the grand final, like, we would have missed everybody who didn't make it through. We would have missed Netherlands. So the fact that we did semifinal 1 and 2 meant that we saw everybody, no matter what.
Which I will say I really appreciated, because I think, as I've reflected back on our experience, for me, one of the biggest, I don't know, takeaways from my Eurovision experience was like how different the songs are when you get to see them live, right? And how much that changes your opinion of the song, or at least it changed my opinion of many songs. So,
It's the atmosphere, it's the crowd, it's the energy, it's all of that.
yeah.
And that's what I've told a lot of people. I'm like, despite the, you know, I'm going to use my air quotes here, the not politics that are going on right now, the atmosphere changes the environment, and it's still beautiful and enjoyable to be a part of. And you just can't help but put yourself in a great headspace when all of that is put into the equation.
Agreed. I also think, and this is an opinion of one, but I actually think some of the artists are just better performers live. Like when you're taking out all the stuff they do in a studio that like actually takes away from what makes them great artists,
The
you
auto-tuning.
lose some of it. And I think there were so many artists that I got to see that I gained an appreciation for their talent and for kind of what they bring to the table that it gets lost when they wind up in a studio and people are taking multiple takes and, you know, throwing auto-tune in, throwing background vocals in, other things that are just kind of, you lose the sense of what you're actually getting. And so the live and I don't know that even on the, like, watching it on the TV translates the same way. So
I mean, it's definitely a full-on experience to be there, to see it in person, and to know that this is designed for TV. So even some of the angles and the camera work and all that stuff is happening, and you're like, but we're here live. I know you'll millions are watching on TV, but we are there in that moment.
yeah.
Yep.
I do think it's interesting though, because that's what I wasn't quite prepared for, like how much it's designed for a TV audience. And so some of the performances, I think, at least for me, got lost because that's what they were catering to, right? Was a
Right.
TV audience versus a live audience.
And we've talked a little bit about this on the podcast overall, with like the UK and Sweden being two prime examples of that. But even you know, we're trying to watch, and when we went to buy tickets, it talked about, oh, this seat is going to have an obstructed view, and we're like, what does that even mean? Well, it's because you got cameras swirling and angles happening and giant cranes lifting things.
Or like when Sweden performs and where our seats were for semifinal 1, they're in a barricade.
They're in a long corridor.
Yeah, that we can't even see. So from where we're sitting, we have to rely on the jumbo screens above us in order to watch what's actually happening inside.
So we saw it, quote unquote, live, but we didn't actually see anything.
We heard it live.
Yeah.
We did hear it live.
And same with Ollie. God bless him. Jesus fucking Christ.
That performance, though, even with the obstructive view, was still not salvageable.
Tell us more. Keith.
Tell the people what you think.
Tell us more.
I mean, we were watching pre-coming to Europe, right? Some of the like Eurovision reels that they had, and the shower singing was what started this for me, because by far and away that was the most awful performance I've ever seen. And then we got there and I was like, well, maybe it'll be better live. It was not better live. It was confusing. I don't understand the theme. I don't think that vocally it was very strong. I just, across the board, was not here for any of it.
You know how you said that some people are better live, Katie? Was that not one of them?
Correct. Ollie, definitely. I think that's a great example of like a song that I maybe had like as a bop or a bubble before coming to Eurovision, and then like by the time we got there and heard it, I was like, absolutely not. no, this cannot go forward. I mean, I know that they got to go forward automatically, but because should they not have had that
when you pay enough money, right?
Yeah, when
Yes.
you pay for your way into the grand final, you can just submit whatever you want.
You
So it's
can.
fine.
You can. And I
Yeah.
think that I don't know. I think it was an unfortunate, I don't know, miss, but I think it also made space for other artists to shine. So I'll take it. I'll take it for what
There
it's
you go.
worth. not
So
not in my top 10, to say the least.
But for this experience, we were able to get those tickets. We really got to just enjoy the moments that we were a part of. And I would say for anybody who's looking to get tickets, any show you can get tickets for is going to be a good time because these artists know that
Just
there are
do
so
it.
many fans out there, and they know that people can't get tickets to everything, so that they have to rehearse, and we want to see them performing. And so I really do feel like the artists gave it their all. They weren't just like, oh, I'm going to half-ass this because it doesn't count.
I agree, and I was really happy with that. Right? I think we got to I don't think we have comparatively speaking, I don't think we saw any of the artists that we got to when we got to watch all of them not give it their all.
Right.
Despite the fact that it wasn't the actual live version of each of the shows that we attended.
Right.
So
Well, and two, we can't have an episode where we don't reference Baby Lasagna because
Baby Lasagna.
we love Baby Lasagna. But even he said after semifinal one, you got to give it your all no matter what performance. And so every performance counts. That's what's great to me about going to the live performances is that they give it their 1,000% all, or at least you hope that they're giving it their 1,000% all because every performance should count.
Yep.
In my eye, at least it does.
And for whatever it's worth, I do think it sways opinions, which then, if you think about the cascade of that, right, we had so many conversations about how our opinions changed and, with those around us and other things. And I think you can think about all of the things that the artists do to kind of get, because it is about getting recognition and then it is about keeping your spot in people's hearts over time. And so, I think giving it your all in every live show matters. It may be not where the big numbers are, but it's still where some of the influence comes from in its own way.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
But-
So I think the biggest takeaway is if you can go to Eurovision, go. It will be the experience of a lifetime. And yes, it's going to be a trip because you have to plan ahead and you've got to make those decisions early so you can get those tickets. Tickets for us, I think they came out in November is when roughly is when that all happened. It's happening
November.
early.
Yeah, it was about November that we found ourselves on Ticketmaster trying to snag tickets. I don't know. Do we know if Ticketmaster will be the ticket provider or ticket holder that will be orchestrating 2025 Eurovision Song Contest?
As far as I'm aware at this point, there's been no information. It would stand to reason it's probably likely, but I don't know. I have no idea what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I would say
so.
It's a strong likelihood.
That's where you want to stay tuned for more and keep an eye on what's happening on, Eurovision.tv to figure out what all the latest breaking news is if you ever decide to go. So,
yep.
I also think for us, the big things that I was really proud that we did was when we planned, right, to get there early because we were making a commute, right, and we just committed to being there early and getting dinner someplace nearby and just some of those other logistics.
Yep.
Those are some other things.
Going to the Eurovision Village.
And just having it pour rain on us
and
with no umbrellas.
Have it pour rain on us with no umbrellas. And meeting Hera. Hey, Hera, how are you? Hope you're doing
definitely
well.
Put that on your list of things to do is to go to the Euro Village.
Yep.
Sure.
You'll possibly meet some of the artists like we did.
Well, I also think I underestimated those meet and greets that you guys were talking about because I think that I was just oh, that's going to be a thing where you don't really get to see them or whatever, and it is actually someplace where you can.
It's true.
Get to know some of the artists, and I don't know. It was a kind of a cool experience to do that.
And I will say that we harp heavily on. We went to the baby lasagna meet and greet. We met Hera randomly at the Eurovision Village, but there were other meet and greets that we went to. We met Isaac, Doug, Ryan, Roger, Michael, Nick, and I met Isaac at a meet and greet. We also met Theodora at her
who you absolutely adore, and you just choose your number one.
Sure. We tried to meet Luna, but sadly she canceled her meet and greet. And Luna, we still hope that one day you decide to drop into the Eurovision Kiki podcast and chat with us, because we absolutely adore you. We tried to do the Windows 95 man meet and greet, and sadly they had to cancel as well. We hope that you guys try to drop in one day. We would love to chat with you as well. Doug, was there another meet and greet that we dropped in on? I'm trying to recall.
None others that we did. It was just nice that these artists are out all week long. They're constantly doing things.
Yeah,
They're going to be at meet and greets. They're going to be at the Eurovillage. They're going to be at the Euro Club. For those of you who don't know, the Euro Club is, I believe, it's sponsored by the fan club.
Yeah.
So shout out to, it's OGAE. Don't ask me what that means. It's in another language, but the translation is the International Organization of Eurovision Fans, which was originally started by Finland, and they created this umbrella organization. Now there's fan clubs all over the world, and so as Americans, we fall under the OGAE rest of the world. And so they offer opportunities to get involved, and there's things that happen all year long in this fan club, and the more you get involved in the fan club, the more you have an opportunity to actually participate in like the Euro Club and get floor tickets like in the standing room area. So if you are a die-hard Eurovision fan and you're thinking about going to Eurovision, think about OGA rest of the world. So
get the points to get on the
and they've got different activities that they do. They do like a second chance contest of songs that may not have made Eurovision but were in national finals for another country. They even do just different things throughout the year. There's an opportunity to give your feedback and your thoughts on the songs pre and post Eurovision. So if you're trying to find a community, if you're saying nobody understands what Eurovision is where I'm from, the OGAE ROTW is the way to go.
Yes.
So is that the organization you were helping kind of pre-screen songs that you think they were using for the postcards and other things? Is that what you were doing through that? I can't remember. You remember you had to screen a bunch of songs as part of like your, I don't know, involvement?
I remember that. So it was one of the contests that they do as a second chance. And then they also do another one where you actually pick something from your region. So as the rest of the world, we looked at songs that came out within the past year and picked it. And this year, the rest of the world chose Sabrina Carpenter's Please, Please, Please as their entry. So there are contests going throughout the year because it's kind of like we all like to vote with the 12-point system. So let's vote in the 12-point system several times a year. It's so much fun. So
awesome. So, well, Katie, a question that we like to ask now that we are officially into the 2025 Eurovision Song Contest season. What are you looking forward to in this new season?
I think I have a newfound appreciation for Eurovision, having had a chance to go, and so I'm excited to, if I because I'm not going to go to the live Eurovision this year. We will definitely be doing a Eurovision party. Our trip has already influenced other people in my life. My brother-in-law is now all Eurovision. So we will have a Eurovision watch party here. And I'm excited to see what new artists come to the table, because as I re-listen to the songs from this year, there are some really great songs that I would never have had exposure to in any other place and in any other forum. And I think it's kind of a cool place to start understanding how music across the world kind of influences us, and or have experience or exposure to music that we would normally not have exposure to. So I'm excited to see what happens this year and what artists Stephen falls in love with that I'm probably less in love with initially. And then his energy and love for them probably makes them grow on me a little bit more, as per usual.
Well, Stockholm syndrome. It's fine.
So what you're basically saying is that when we get deeper and deeper into 2025,
Yes.
you're going to come back and play Bop or Flop.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think about that and how my opinions have changed about some of those songs.
Which Portugal and
Is
Yolanda,
a great example.
Yolanda
Yes.
is a great example of that because Katie was anti-Yolanda until we finally got to Sweden and she performed live and Katie was finally about it. Whereas similarly, and I've shared this numerous times, I was anti-Australia and Electric Field until we finally got to Sweden and I was like... Oh.
And then you finally figured it out and you're like, now I get why Doug loves it so much.
Well, I finally figured out why the consensus was all about it because everybody in the group was about it except for me. So
I'm still honestly.
It's okay. I don't hate you a lot. Just a little bit.
Yes, it's the unpopular opinion of the group for sure. But I would say like that performance specifically was still really great live, and it made a big difference for me because she performed so well and her partner, I think, brought her down. I don't think her partner did her any justice.
You said that numerous. You said that numerous times. Mm-hmm. Yet they were 11th, and so
I just did not.
Maybe they would have been 10th if it was just her.
Maybe. I actually wonder if they wouldn't have been even higher than that had she been a solo act versus a duo. So
I wonder a lot of things, but. That's
not one of them.
That's definitely not one of them because I'm still trying to figure out how we get Luna in the top 10.
Yeah.
But to that extent, shout out Jamie and Tim, Katie's sister and brother-in-law, because we did rope them into the
Eurovision family
here in the U.S.
And it just goes to show that you don't know it. And then you find out about it, and then you have to be on board, right? Like, there's no other way.
Yep. So, well, with that being said, I think we will go ahead and wrap up today's episode. Katie, thank you for joining us in other Katie's absence, even though you're other Katie.
I'm happy to have been hopefully an okay temporary replacement for the real Katie.
Always. And I can't wait to have you on future episodes, especially as we get into the 2025 Eurovision Song Contest season. Do you want to share how our listeners can find or follow you on the socials?
No.
Okay.
You can't.
Don't follow me.
It's just as a guest, I
appreciate that.
As a guest, I like to make sure that you have the opportunity to share that, but she does not want to share that with you all, and that's okay.
Katie lives a high-profile life of touring around the world, and she just needs her space.
And she does.
We
respect those boundaries.
Exceptionally interesting person.
We respect those boundaries, but that's okay. As always, though, for our listeners that are here, thank you as always for taking time to listen to another episode of the Eurovision Kiki podcast. Please do feel free to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube and Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Eurovision Kiki. If you've got questions, you can email them at eurovisionkiki@gmail.com. Thank you all once again. And as always, we will see you all at our next Kiki.